talked a little bit about these guys. One thing I want you to know is one of the greatest wars going on in the world today is going on inside this group. It's very important to know this. You get all those horses fed?
Sorry, I did. And dogs and puppies.
Wow. I could have used a puppy hug this morning.
So one of the greatest wars is going inside this group right now. God told us that 1/3 of the hosts of heaven were evil.
Charge for now.
That's 1 out of 3 people. In this group, it's being divided right now. So let's just call this 1/3, 2/3. It was all evil for a long period of time. The evil rose to the top, and it was all evil. The Vatican backed out of the Pindar. When they backed out of the Pindar, England, Queen of Holland, this man jumped in his place. This man's a fairly good, honest, righteous man. And now he's written letters to these people saying, hey, we need to knock this off. You got to stop it. And a lot of the ones below him are joining him. And this line is moving across here. And on June the 1st, believe it or not, the Queen joined him. Now it's 2/3, 1/3. Pretty darn special, pretty interesting. See, President Trump on June 1st was supposed to go to Brussels. I was supposed to be there representing some sovereign governments. And they were supposed to sign something called the Global Currency Reset. And it never happened. It didn't happen because he had an opportunity, a small window, that he had to go see the Queen. He went to see the Queen on June 1st. Basically, this man is a cousin of Donald Trump. Yesterday we were talking about hierarchy, how genealogy works through the world. All of our presidents can be traced back to King John of Spain, of England, except for 2. One traces to both, and one traces to King Ferdinand of Spain. Remember what I told you yesterday? That war going on inside this group is moving, it's changing, it's becoming more and more righteous. When this group, if it even becomes 2/3 righteous, the whole world's going to change for the better. Another thing we talked about this morning, if you draw a circle, and you could write any group you want inside that circle, there's a Great Wall of China built right down through the middle of it. Never whine and complain about any organization being all bad, all evil, because it's not true. About half the people in each organization are the best of the best of the brightest in the world. And they've saved the world many, many, many times over. I'm talking about individuals. One man who's allowing you to sit here today because he did something that saved the world. And I can tell you story after story after story. Okay. On the other side is order followers. Not so good. They'll do anything regardless of its moral outcome. Okay. But on one side is really, really good people. And we're all sitting here today because of it. Anyway, just wanted to mention that. Too many people out there fuel hate. And they fuel hate and they get mad and they complain about one organization. If you're going to complain about one, there's only two that I can think of that you'd have any cause to really complain about, and that's the bar, the FBI, and the bankers. The FBI has no lawful authority to even exist. And they hate it when I say this on camera and it gets on YouTube. Because there is some good people in the FBI too. You could write them in it. Some very good people. But for the vast majority, they had a purpose. They were set up and designed for one purpose and one purpose only, and that was to protect the deep state. The FBI was created in 1908 by the Secretary of the Department of Justice. They have no congressional authority to even exist. No congressional charter. When they asked Congress for a formal charter, they were denied. They were denied by Congress to have any authority. Yet they exist. So how do they operate? How do they have authority? Through their power and belief. They dress in nice suits and they show up at a police office and they're all tough and they can out debate most police chiefs. See? And they can presume that they have the authority. We are the FBI. We always get our man. You know, they just command the authority, and then the police chiefs consent. And when they show up at your door, we're here from the FBI, you quiver. And you just start to shrink, and you give them your consent, and you answer their questions, and you give them your authority. If I'm tired and exhausted and I don't want to deal with life anymore, and I walk up to the security guard at a shopping mall, and I say, hey buddy, I'm tired. I don't want to make any more decisions. I'm just going to give you all my authority. You can tell me where to go, what to do, where to eat, where to sit. It doesn't matter. You tell me. He now has the same authority as the FBI. A security guard at a shopping mall over you. Because you gave it. This is what we have to realize, what I'm trying to drum in your heads, is all authority in government today is perceived. It's perceived authority by you. They have no legal authority. They're private for-profit entities that are all de facto. They're not de jure. They're all operating without fact through the consent of the government. Well, look at the Supreme Court cases. There's hundreds of them. Rules, codes, statutes, and ordinances are not law. They're corporate bylaws. The governments operate through the consent of the government. Title 18, 241, and 242. 241 is a conspiracy to deprive you of your rights under the color law. 242 is a deprivation of rights under the color law. That just means whether there's one or more people. When we start realizing this, we wake up and we learn that they're perceived authority. That's when we begin to see we have the power and not them. So if we want to change the country, remember we're right in the middle. We're almost 730 days in to our 2,000 days of awakening. The country is waking up. People are waking up all over the nation. They're standing up, they're going to their legislator, they're going to the president, they're speaking in front of Congress. They're protesting the hospitals, they're protesting the whatever it might be, CPS agencies. Okay? And people are waking up all over the nation because they're starting to realize they're just perceived authority.
But it's the people who are waking up that they really covertly get.
What's that? No, you go ahead and say it one more time.
It's the people who have woken or who are naturally awoken or whatever, who they get covertly. You know, I'd have to, that was gut. I'd have to do it again.
Three things, again, always keep in mind. They get your tacit agreement. If you have a citizen, person, or resident, they can do whatever they want to you. have to get that tacit agreement.
What agreement would be like driver's license, anything or?
Here's how a cop's trained to get it in 30 seconds.
Mhm.
And then I'll tell you how a judge gets it. Okay? Police officer pulls you over, you roll your window down, he walks in the window and says, "Can I have your driver's license, proof of insurance, registration, please?" "Sure, officer." You gather them all at the end. You just gave him tacit agreement to be a citizen,
Okay, for the
because
driver's
a
license?
citizen is an employee.
And they follow the directions.
Yeah, municipal leader,
Mm-hmm.
employee. Okay, so you're an employee of government right there, you've got tacit agreement. Then the driver's license confirms arrest. Your all caps name is on there. Your address is on there with your zip. Resident is someone there temporarily to do business.
Okay.
Living in Washington DC, but residing in whatever state you're in temporarily to do business.
And that's when he said, you pull down your insurance, kind of put it on the dash or somewhere where it's out of reach. And then, yeah, I've had this happen for a while. Give them your passport.
Why do I do that?
So-
It shows my intent to protect my neighbor. I don't verify it, I don't give it to them. I will let them know I have the intent that I care about my neighbor. See, if you love your neighbor, do no harm, you can't break any laws. You can't. That's it. That's the only two laws you gotta follow. Love thy neighbor, do no harm. To anyone. You can't break any laws. So they give you your tacit agreement. They use these two doctors to steal everything from you. Who asked me when class was over yesterday about the penal sums and how do you prove that in your case? So anyway, just remember that question. It's not easy to prove this. This takes a lot of time and research. If you have a federal case, it's much easier. So if you're charged with a federal crime, it's easier to prove than it is a state crime. Because the state hides it through the GSAs. It's a lot more difficult. But on the federal level, you can pull up your PACER. You can see the things it says. You can compare that to the Department of Fiscal Services. You can compare the dates on your indictments and your trials and your sentencing dates with the dates on Department of Fiscal Services and on fidelity.com. You can pull up all three screens and you can figure it out, how much they're getting, everything.
This one, when he got in trouble, they had him in state, then federal, then
They
state,
kept
then
going back and
federal.
forth with my case. They kept saying state, first they said federal, then they went state, then they went federal, then they went state, and then stayed in the state.
That's highly unusual.
Yes.
Because they kept on saying, you're looking at 20 years here, and then they said that, it was 6 years, state.
Yeah. If they even mention that, something like that to you,
I don't know.
yeah, I do. But if they do, and if they ever mention, oh, you're looking at 12 years, say, oh no, I'm not looking at any time at all. Time don't matter. See? And let them know that. Let them know why it doesn't matter. Because you're declaring your innocence. You always declare your innocence. You're not guilty or not guilty. You're innocent. You keep declaring your innocence in your court case. Every document put in, declare your innocence. In order for a crime to be committed, there's got to be intent. And that's why I show them the insurance card, put it in the middle. It's my intent not to harm my neighbor or to protect my neighbor. That's it. Everything is about intent. How many times has somebody gone to trial and the prosecutor got up there and just railroaded you through and not one single person said you had intent to commit the crime? I've seen entire federal cases go through a trial and people found guilty. And read all the transcripts, I see what happened, I look at all their documents in the case, I can see that been railroaded, and I can see that not one person asked for the intent. So I write a little note to the judge, a little notice, and I said, Judge, where was the intent proven that this person had any intent to commit a crime? The judge says, holy shit. Prosecutor, how come you didn't prove intent? And the judge jumps onto your side and starts going after the prosecutor. It's fun to watch in the courtroom. It's really fun. Bring that up sometime. Watch what happens. It's really interesting. Okay. Land, air, and water. 3 different types of law. Property, equity, rights, trust, or contract. Those are our 3 jurisdictions. We need to know the diction to determine which one we're in. Governments all operate in this jurisdiction. There must be a contract. When you go up to a judge and you go through this, Judge, can I ask a question? Just a dumb farm boy from a mill town. What is the law? Where does ordinance come from? How did we arrive at this thing called law where a small group of men can put something down on paper and hold me and man accountable? Shut up and let them listen. Let them answer. And they answer, and they never give you a good answer. Ever. I've asked them more than 300 times in courtrooms. They've never given you a good answer. So you go Genesis 1:26 through 28. This is my comprehension of it. God gave me dominion over the land, the air, and the water, and all things that are in. The land became common. It's property, equity, and rights. It's common law. The air became ecclesiastical or canon law, which is trust law. The water became admiralty or commerce, which is contract law. Now, when the prosecutor a few minutes ago misused the word jurisdiction and said it was in the county's jurisdiction, what he really meant to say was venue or locus, location. Because all of you, whether you're in the city, the county, the state, the federal government, this agency or that agency, you're all acting in this jurisdiction, right? And you shut up. And you let him answer. And if he doesn't answer, you say, Judge, are we in contract law? Are we in trust law? Or are we in equity? He'll answer, we're in contract. Great. Now that we've narrowed it down to 1 + 1 is 2, bring forth the contract. Right? It doesn't meet all 8 elements of a contract. You do that, and I guarantee you're going to walk out the door instead of go behind bars. Because they never will have a contract that's worth anything. They don't hold water. Because they base everything on presumption, assumption, and hearsay. All right. That was a very,
David,
very quick recap.
David,
Things added.
question. Family court, contract, you know, the problem is we got this kangaroo court over here. So when I stupidly bring a case into family court, then do I have a contract with them that I have to fulfill until the end?
If you brought it in, yes.
Yeah, so how do I get rid of that contract?
Go to a higher court. Move it out. Move it out of family court.
And then,
Take
which
it
I
to
plan
state
on
court.
doing,
Well, it's all-
but then will that, can they bring me back into family court again because I did, or it will always be in family court once it's appealed?
We'll
Not-
say that one more time.
Sorry, I probably, once it's in state court,
It's early in the morning.
so you bring it to a higher court by appealing or just by jumping over?
Yeah. You know why appeals rarely work? Because an appeal system is not designed to look at your case. It's designed to look at, did the other court screw up? Did they commit any Brady violations or NAPUA violations or Miranda violations or this, that, and the other? Okay. That's why most people lose their appeal. They go to an appeals court with their case, and the appeals court says, okay, we're gonna rule on behalf of the lower court, because you didn't show where the lower court committed any violations.
Now what if, okay, like him and I, we appealed and we won our appeal, but we still got dragged into family court and we still got, not terminated, but we still got the kids taken away. What would you do on something like that?
See, family court are rogue. They're rogue. They're operated under their own policy. They're not operated under law. So unless you bring the law into family court and you hold them to it, remember we wrote ASFA,
Yeah.
ASFA, Title IV, 2 Act, which is the Social Security Act, okay? The 2 acts that created Child Protective Services and family courts both say they cannot take a child from a parent without the parent's consent. So the first thing you've got to do in your case is try and analyze it and figure out, where did I screw up? Where did I give them my consent? Did I sign a family plan for services? Did I bring it to family court? Did I go in and not challenge jurisdiction by special appearance? Was I a person, a citizen, or resident? Where did I screw up that I gave them jurisdiction? Where did I contract? You ask yourself all those questions. Where did I mess up? Once you find out where you messed up, go correct it.
I know it's with Josh Gutierrez with the Casa Central. We contracted with them because they said that our son will come home if you contract with the Casa Central people, basically. And he said, then you'll get your son home.
Uh-huh.
And that
Quit
was
playing by their
messed
rules.
up.
Just quit playing by their
Have you
rules, you create
ever-
your own rules.
Seen a liar lie
Yeah.
Exactly.
convincingly?
Yeah.
That's exactly what they just did to you,
In our
Yeah.
home.
okay? Their job is to string you out 18 to 24 months,
Okay.
and then they can terminate your parental rights no matter
We
what
didn't
you
get
do.
TTR.
But they said
Doesn't
they can't.
Oh, they can't.
They can't.
Oh, well,
She-
thank God we didn't.
She
but-
didn't do it, the judge didn't do it because we pretty much told her, you know you have no, I told her on the record, you know you have no reason to really, terminate us, and she didn't. So, I mean, right there, it kind of proved that, they had no right,
Right.
or,
But both of these laws is clearly written in there.
that's what I'm
I mean, it's clearly written in there. Look it up. Bring it up. Put it in your court documents, cut and paste. Here it is, Judge. You cannot remove a child without my consent. I don't give you my consent. And if I mistakenly have given you through presumption or assumption my consent, I hereby rescind and withdraw it.
I have a question. What if, like, let's say he gives consent, but I don't? Can, like, if you have a couple, can, like, one say, I don't give consent, and then...
Oh yeah, it happens all the time. That is called divorce court.
Okay, well, I didn't know. I was just...
Yeah.
Wanna go there?
This all
No.
happens under statutory jurisdiction, which doesn't exist in the first place, though. So I mean, you only
Correct.
have 2 constitutional jurisdictions in the first place. This is-
That's right, but that's what they're operating. So the
Right.
only way to, when they're coming after you with a problem, they have the guns. They have the force and effect. That's what we gotta remember. Otherwise, we end up as some dumb sovereign citizen somewhere in some jail that's there for a while. Okay? They have force and effect. So the words are important. We talked about this yesterday. 44 out of 45 presidents have got them on camera and said, we the people are sovereign.
Yeah.
So when a police officer says, oh, that sounds like sovereign citizen stuff, or some judge says that, or some attorney says that, I said, oh, so you're disagreeing with 44 out of 45 of our presidents? They shut up.
Every word mattered, which is why the legal deception is so deep in
Which is such
religion.
stupid
Every word.
legalese.
Are you this child's parent? Yes, I am. You go to jail. Are you this child's parent? No, I'm his father. Okay, let's keep talking. Every word freaking matters. It's almost impossible if you play the statutory jurisdiction game.
And it should.
That's why the most important thing, and that's why I break down jurisdiction the way I do. I never write jurisdiction as one word. I read it as 2 words.
How was it that? With the 2 words, that you wrote 2 words?
I write jurisdiction as 2 words. Juris, because it means right law. Diction means words. The words you use determines the right law under which you stand. One thing we all need to learn is the language. We got to have language skills. Is what you on. Like me on pretty soon. Didn't give her enough coffee this morning. Obama.
Yeah, I was guessing that was the one.
I watched every one of his darn presidential speeches, stuff to see if he did it. So. We have 2 jobs in this life. That's it. Correct the errors. Our public servants make. And educate them. So they don't do it again. The rest of the time we could be fishing. That's it. So we have to point things out. Learn the United States Code. God, I can't stress that enough. The United States Code was put there for one reason only. That's for we the people to hold them accountable. It was written for employees of government. So change your status, your standing, know your jurisdiction, so that you're not an employee of government, so it doesn't apply to you. You can use it to apply to them. That in which one creates, one controls, the maximum law. We the people create a government, we control government. When government creates a person, the citizen and the resident, they control the person, the citizen, and the resident. Okay? Very, very important things to remember. Our biggest job is to understand that it is perceived authority. If we believe their authority, we bow down to them. When we understand their perceived authority, we can stand up and talk to them just like our neighbor. We're not afraid of them. We can stand up and say, look, I like you. If you want to come have a beer sometime, that's great. Or come sit down for coffee. I like you. I don't have anything against you. You're one of my neighbors. But under Title 18, Section 242, you operate under the color of law. And anything colorful is a fallacy. So we don't have any business together. Truck on down the road, find somebody else who will bend over. Okay? And it's that simple. I've had police officers come up to my gate at my house. My house is 10 acres. And I have a 6-foot-high chain link fence. Going like that. I can pull an entire semi in there before I have to open my lock gate. And it's chain link with the white slats. Police pulls up in my driveway, he's trapped. He's literally trapped in there. I don't even have to open the gate. That's a dangerous place for a police officer, especially my friend. I walk up to him, I reach my hand through the gate. Hi officer, how you doing? You having a good day? I treat every one of them like I would any of my neighbors. I say, you're here on private business or commercial business? So, I got a complaint from one of your neighbors, your dogs were barking too loud. Whatever. Doesn't matter what he says. I say, oh, you got a complaint. Nobody cares about a complaint. Nobody wants to hear anybody complain. Anybody can complain about anything. I can complain about your tie. Did they file a claim? Did they swear out an affidavit under penalty of perjury? My dogs were too loud. Right. Where's their first-hand witness? You got a cooperating witness. Then you're here just operating under the color of law. Under Title 18, Section 242. If you want to come over for coffee sometime, you're welcome. But other than that, truck off on down the road, talk to somebody else a little bit. And I do that with building inspectors and everybody else. They all operate under the color of law. They're all private for-profit entities. Okay.
Policy enforcement, not law enforcement.
That's
It says
right.
it right on their costume.
Yeah. Police. Police is policy. They're not justices of the peace or peace officers. Policy enforcement. So, kind of threw me off a second. Well, I'll tell you, one cup of coffee was just not enough this morning. He was spot on, tossed me for a loop.
We'll get him a cup.
So-
We'll get him a cup.
In this business of waking up, we tend to graduate depending on how much we learned and how much time has passed. And we get better and better and better and better and better at what we do. And we also change what we do. So some people, they go along for a 30-year period of time exactly the same, doing things the same old way, and then all of a sudden it doesn't work. Because they legislate ahead of you, they do all kinds of things to try and shut you down and stop you. Okay? What I'm trying to get to is I'm trying to say tell you something that I've recently learned and that I've recently done. And that is not own anything. Go into a higher law. Go into ecclesiastical law, trust law. Put everything in a trust. Own nothing, control everything. Now, with my beliefs, and it's not everybody's beliefs, but with my belief, I believe in God. So I put everything in a God trust. You guys can pass it around, read it, look at it. This is an actual recorded copy with recorded bar strip on it. And so it's one of the originals. You can read this. I believe everything is His. That we're just here to be good stewards. That we're here to manage it. We're here to train and pass it down to our heirs, successors, and our sons.
If I wanted to, could I like what I own, I can leave it like all to my son and daughter without, you know what I'm saying? Without
Absolutely.
me.
You can put your house in it, your cars in it, you own nothing, you control everything. It's all in a God trust. And this is what I've done and what I've recorded. So you're welcome to read it. One of the big things is right on the IRS's website, it says every organization exempt from federal income tax under Internal Revenue Code Section 501A must file an annual information return except and exclusively religious activity of any religious order. I read number 6, but it's all churches. Everything that deals with the church and deals with God is completely exempt from filing anything. They don't have to be a 501c3. They were exempt from the beginning. They were the highest form of law. Okay, the air's up here, the land's here, and the water's down here, and if you walk in the water, you drown. Yet we still have dominion over it. Okay, so I think that's a very important progression that we need to make, and it takes a long time to move all your assets, everything you have, your bank accounts, everything into a God trust. But if you have nothing, if you don't even have any wages, if you go to your employer and say, hey, look, I've given everything to God. My entire life, I'm dedicated it to God. That's my religious belief, and I expect you to abide by it. From now on, I am no longer your employee. I will work for you. I will do whatever you want in God's name. My paycheck now goes to the name of my God trust. It's a tax exempt in the HR department. Get it switched over.
So can you put your,
Social Security, that goes with that.
What's that?
Social Security.
Social Security is a private annuity contract. That's the way it was set up. Now they've bastardized it over the years. They switched all the funds into the general fund, but it's still set up as a private annuity contract. See, they can amend, but they haven't. They haven't replaced the original act that created Social Security. It's still in effect. It was originally set up as a private annuity contract. It's not even a good investment. I recommend against it. It's a terrible investment. If you were 20 years old, and you took $25 a month out of each paycheck, put it in a good mutual fund, you'd end up with a whole lot more at retirement at 65 than you would in Social Security. It's a terrible investment.
Right, it's too late.
Yeah, for a lot of people. Okay,
so can you put your kids in a trust?
what's
Can you
that?
put your kids in a trust?
I'm teaching them all about it. I mailed them a copy. I said, here's what you should do. You know, my kids are all over 18. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So you just try and educate them.
Yeah,
on
and
what
they
they
were
can
brainwashed
apply.
by the school systems.
You
Now, was that the
Some
question
of my
that you
kids
asked?
listen to me and some of them don't.
When they're a minor though, can you put them in your trust?
Absolutely.
What if they're adults?
And you can pass your trust down to them.
Would that be the beneficiary or how does that work?
Your heirs, successors, and or assigns become the steward. God's a trustee. You're the steward. You're the manager.
Now, why can't you put like our daughter who's in college? Now, why can't you put her in a trust? Because she's only in college. She's not, completely.
She's over 18.
Yeah, she'll be 19.
She's got to make her own decision.
Oh,
You
I don't
can
know.
make her
18.
an heir to your trust. She can manage it. It can be the same trust. That's why mine's called the Strait of Million God Trust. Yeah, my family name for generations. So,
So is the family name important with different organizations? Doesn't matter. Okay.
not that matter.
This is how our contract goes. The name change.
Okay. First, you have unalienable rights. The number one foundational cornerstone of all rights is your right of self-determination. You can do whatever it is you want to do. You know why there's so many last names in the world today?
Cognomens.
Huh?
Cognomen. Your known and your cognomens. What year are you in Wheels of Rome? That's why it was Farmer, Fletcher, Thatcher. Says what you do.
That started it off, but there were many, many other nations in the world that started things differently. If I was a Norwegian, Sweden, Norway, any of those countries, and my name's David Lester String, and I have a son named Christopher David String, I wouldn't have named him that. It would have been Christopher David's son, and his last name would become Davidson. String was a family name, it just went away. Now he has a kid, and he names it David Daniel Christopherson. Every generation, the last name changed. Why? So the king could follow along the same path and keep taxing generation after generation after generation, so that there would be no discrimination. They just changed the last name. And it went on and on and on and on like that. And that's why there's hundreds of thousands of different last names in the world today. So, they're not the only countries that did that either. So anyway, I still lost my train of thought. Been trying to remember I was going to put something in that box. I can't remember what it was. It's terrible.
It's a contract, right?
Uh,
It's a have his own contractor.
No, I rarely do that. I rarely lose my train of thought. I can go back around and around in circles and back in states. It's usually fine. But, no, I have a specific reason for that box, and I can't remember what it was. So, anyway.
When he asked his question about his kids in the trust,
They're cute.
was that when you drew the square? If you remember when you drew it, who was asking what question?
No, no. No. But that happens. Anyway, we were gonna talk about some specific things that deal directly with your problems. That's what we're here for, is to deal with your problems. So, do we wanna air our dirty laundry in front of everybody and bring up one problem after
No,
another?
it's not bad. It's about getting our son back. He's under guardianship with my adopted parents through the state court, but we never got TPR. And I'm just wanting to fight to get him home because he wants to come home, be raised by us.
And the last court date that we had was in May of 2017, and she states, Judge Buford stated,
She had jurisdiction
the case is
still.
closed, but she still, right before she was about to hit, and also she remembered, she pulled back, and she goes, but I still have jurisdiction of the case.
And it's in Cook
And that was
County.
it, so that's where we're at, is we're gonna proceed to go back in front of her and tell her, this, and,
I wouldn't recommend that.
oh, no, I'm gonna write on my paperwork, I'm a
Look.
belligerent, belligerent, I am belligerent.
It's very simple. Everything is a hierarchy.
Yeah, he wants to come home.
Everything is a hierarchy. It's been handed down through generation. No one has a greater right to your child than you. It's that simple. No one has a greater right to your child than you. So if they haven't tried and through proper due process of law convicted you of some kind of a felony, they cannot take your child from you. You are the guardians. Now, I don't care what they say on paper, you are the guardians. So what you have to do is you have to show them in everything that's written, that's enumerated on paper in acts of Congress and law and treaties and on and on and on. You can use the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, where it says no one has a greater right to your child than you. You can use the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. You can use the Bill of Rights. You can use our constitutions, our state constitutions. There are several of our states, and because of the supremacy law and the agreement to all states work together, you can use laws from the state of Washington and Florida. You can use state laws from Florida and Washington. Doesn't matter. So start reading all the state constitutions, and I guarantee you'll find state constitutions, lots of them, that'll show that no one has a greater right to your child than you.
Because my
Now you go
parents,
to the judge and you say, Judge, I have this, 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 that says no one has a greater right to my child than I do.
and my
I
parents are
have-
in their 80s and they pawn him off to like younger men.
Right,
Because they can't keep up with him because he's very active.
right. So if you want them back, you show them all the laws that say you're supposed to have them. And then what do? If you have anything to the contrary, Judge, bring it forward in writing. What proof or fact of evidence do you have in writing that I do not deserve my children?
So I thought they didn't use her.
They don't, unless you bring it up.
Okay.
See, it goes back to you all the time. It's your fault if they don't. That's right. They gotta have a proof of claim. So what proof, in truth or fact, in the evidence, do you have in writing that, and then you finish the sentence. And you can ask in any letter of rogatory or letter of interrogatory. One is if they have jurisdiction, one if they're a foreign state, saying they don't have jurisdiction. So I do letters of rogatory. In a letter of rogatory, you can ask up to 25 questions. You ask 26, they're gonna throw it out. Okay, you can ask up to 25 questions. And your questions should always start with, what proof in truth or fact of evidence do you have in writing that I am an employee of government, that I'm subject to your statute, that I'm not a person, a citizen, a resident, and they have to bring it forward in writing and answer you. If they don't bring it forward in writing and answer you, and you've made your paperwork your court of record, remember we talked about court of record yesterday, it ain't the brick building. If you want to have fun, go online and type in court of record, and I think it's courtofrecord.org. It's all the Vatican's paperwork on all their court cases, telling kings and queens and presidents what to do. It's kind of fun to read. And it's a court of record. See, a court of record is not the building. A court of record is your paperwork, properly served, publicly published, and filed in your case. A court of record is your paperwork, properly served, publicly published, and then filed in your case. Well, let me tell you the ways. There's lots of ways. You can put it in the newspaper for 21 days. You can put it on a bulletin board with 2 friends witnesses in it, and they swear out an affidavit that you placed it here on the state at such and such a time, and it was there for 21 days. You can go to Amazon.com and put it in a book. Sell it for 99 cents, publicly publish it. You can record it at your county recorders under miscellaneous document. There's many, that's the easiest way. There's many, many, many ways. A lot of the counties will give you heck for it,
Can they
some won't
refuse?
do it. Oh yeah,
What do you say to that?
not legally, they can't
Right.
refuse.
Do you tell them that, or are you giving me legal advice?
No.
Cook County refuses, I was trying to,
I have a notice to clerk, we've got it filed in this county many times.
yeah.
Okay,
Oh, yeah, you just do it anyway. They'll say no, and then you still, it's your job, do it.
yeah. I have a notice to clerk and it tells the law, and it says, court clerk, if you don't file it, you're committing a felony. Okay, that's right, they do. Court clerk is the bank president, not the judge, not the prosecutor. The court clerk is the bank president.
Now, could we go after the GALs for the kids that they had? Can you go after them? If you want to, like, say, hey, you didn't follow this, and then kind of.
You have to serve all opposing parties. If you got a CPS case, you got a lot of parties to serve. You got the guardian ad litems, you got the attorneys, you got the judges, you got CPS, probably several individual agents. You should serve them in both their private and their public capacity. Okay.
See, we found out that a couple of the caseworkers from DCFS and one caseworker from Casa Central is no longer employed by them, and we had asked their I actually talked to their legal department, and I had said, well, I need their information so I can serve them, and they said, well, you know, we're not going to give you their home address. And I go, unless I need their
That's
their
when
information.
something like truthfinder.com works real well. You pay them $19.95 a month and you can find any.
FOIA, just
You
do
can
a
see if
FOIA.
Yeah,
Do a FOIA, they have to.
Freedom of
yeah, you
information.
can do that too.
FOIA, it works within 3 days, they have to. They have a 3-day limit on it, you'll have whatever
And if they
information
try
you
and
want.
charge you because they're trying to give you actual copies, tell them that you want it in email or PDF form, and they'll email it to you.
And what they had told me was if I wanted to serve the ex-employee, they wanted me to serve them there. But I told them, I said, but I need to also serve them as an individual, you know, as a separate. And that's why they were saying that they wouldn't give me their home address. But so do I just double?
You can find anybody.
Do I serve them the same time at the same agency, even though they're not working there?
No, get their home address. I recommend dossiers on everything. I love dossiers.
Now, what is that?
Nobody has learned to do that better than federal agents. Take a dossier is a file folder that you create on them. pretty soon you know their names, their addresses, their phone numbers, where they work, what car they drive, their license plate, where they park often at their work. You know what color their car is, their make and model, serial number. You know everything about them. How many kids they have, how many times they've been married, how many times they've been in trouble with the law. Write it all down. These people start getting belligerent and following their own policies instead of following the law. Now it's your job. Now your job kicks in to hold them accountable. Now you sue them. You sue them using the United States Code. Sue them in federal court. You can take your city municipal director and sue them in federal court under the United States Code. It's another thing Trump helped us with. We no longer have to exhaust a state court before going to federal court. We go right to federal court.
Another question. You were saying something about we only have so many questions that we can ask for, or a while back,
25.
25 for what? What is that?
25 questions in a letter of interrogatory or a letter of interrogatory. Interrogatory is where you're still in their jurisdiction. Let me tell you another place a lot of people that learn this stuff make a mistake. When they're coming after you and you're in the defensive mode instead of the offensive mode, you try to be a man, sui juris, a living soul. You remove yourself from their jurisdiction. You challenge jurisdiction. Always challenge jurisdiction. And what happens when it's your time to go after them? If you go after them and you're claiming to be a man sui juris, you can only go after the man sui juris.
So you can only go, but they also have to be considered suitors, so how does that work?
You can't force them to do anything. They have the unalienable right of self-determination. They can be that person, citizen, resident, all they want. You can't do anything. So how do you go after them? Go in as pro se. Go in as the person. God gave us dominion over all three jurisdictions. You can walk amongst them. I can be a common law 1 minute, admiralty law the next minute, ecclesiastical law the next minute, and back and forth, and I don't have to apologize for it or say one is wrong or one is
How
not.
do you, but doesn't that change the jurisdiction you're in at that point too? Okay, but you have to do it according to what's going on, or?
One, you're the offense.
Okay.
The other, you're the defense. Okay? They're acting as public servants. They're actors. Say that over and over again. They're actors because they're in private for-profit entities. Okay, I just remembered what I was going to put in the box. Good to come. Just a little slow this morning. Know your enemy. And I'll tell you what. If the city of Wooddale Police Department's coming after you and they charged you with some crime, doesn't matter what, we're just gonna pull something out of thin air. Doesn't matter. What it
Crime or
is.
a crime or a
Statutory violation.
Whatever. Yeah, statutory violation is fine. I don't care. That's what they will work under anyway. But they'll use the word crime. Okay.
I'm just saying, assuming we haven't satisfied or supplied corpus electi, that everything we're saying works, right?
Know your enemy. Who are they? You got a police officer involved, right? A policy enforcement revenue collection agent. That's what it really is. Who else you got involved? Probably the city attorney, who becomes a prosecutor. what city? What is the name of the city? Wooddale, right? I don't know, it's one word, 2 words, I don't care. The police department, the City of Wooddale Police Department is a separate entity from the City of Wooddale. It's got a different Dun and Bradstreet number. It's got a different Manta.com report. Then you have the City of Wooddale, which has a Dun and Bradstreet number and a Manta.com report. Then it's at the courthouse. Get the name of the courthouse. And it's a private for-profit business too. And look up their Dun and Bradstreet number and their Manta.com report. It'll tell a lot of times their credit rating. In Arizona, the Supreme Court of Arizona has a lousy credit rating. They only have a $3 million credit limit, and they don't pay their bills for 120 days. 120 days. That's 4 months. They're 4 months late if you bill them. Okay? So know these things about them. Look them up. I wouldn't know that about the Supreme Court of Arizona, except I looked it up. See? So look it up. Research every single one. In Utah, I found out that the First District Court of Cache County is owned by one man whose corporate headquarters lives in Ogden, Utah, and he owns 7 county courthouses, just like a McDonald's franchise. Do you think they're government? It's owned by one man. It's a private, for-profit entity.
Yeah, Dun & Bradstreet, what was the other thing you were saying? What?
A Manta.com report.
What does it say again?
Manta.com.
And what is that?
Manta keeps track of all registered corporations. And you pull up the report, the first thing it'll say is private. Private corporation. Okay? Now, Wooddale is located in what county? Is it Crook or Cook?
Crook.
Cook, but we call
Good?
it. Yeah, it's Cook, but we call it.
I think
Crook.
it's Crook. Let's just say it for fun. Okay? Crook County. Look up Crook County's Dun & Bradstreet number. Their Manta.com report. They're a private for-profit entity. Look up State of Illinois. They're a private for-profit entity. Probably located at 444 North Congress Avenue, Washington, D.C. That's where their business address is located. That's where their corporate registry is. That's where their corporate charter is registered. What happens if you start a business and you register it with the state and you register your corporate charter with the state and then you don't follow your corporate charter? The state can come in and close his business down if he doesn't follow his corporate charter. Wait a minute, what's good for the goose is good for the gander, right?
Yeah.
They got a corporate charter. It's called the Constitution of the state. Look at the Constitution. If they're operating outside their scope of authority, which they do on a daily basis, go in front of the legislature with an order to remove and revoke their corporate charter. Oh, now you're going to turn some heads. They're never going to do it, but you're going to turn some heads. And you're going to challenge the statute that's against the Constitution as void for any effect. And they'll have to remove that state statute off the books if you challenge that through the legislature that way. You want to change your laws? That's how you change your laws. If they don't comply to the Constitution of the state and the federal government, then they're void for any effect. But it's up to the people to bring it up to the legislature. They're not gonna do it on their own. They're all attorneys. They're actors to a turn. They're gonna write these laws to mess with you. Start messing with them, it's a lot more fun.
So it's the people of California.
Right.
I could get better.
You wanna go up the ladder, you got the United States Corporation. Look up their Dun & Bradstreet number. Then you got the IMF.
What's the stand
The
for?
United Nations.
It's IMF.
Every one of them's private for-profit entity. Get a prospectus from them on their company. Under the Securities Exchange Administration, which by the way was also founded with the World Bank and the IMF, they're required to keep a prospectus. Do you know the United States government has a prospectus? Couldn't sell you United States Treasury bonds if they did. This gets really fun.
Who all is required to keep the prospectus? Everybody?
Any
All
and
businesses?
everybody.
So all the way down to
All
Mr. Police Officer?
corporations.
Wow.
If they're selling investments, they're required to, yeah,
So down to the city probably. But
probably.
what's IMF stand for again?
International Monetary Fund. If you
Thank
go to any investment council, go to Fidelity and say, hey, I wanna see the prospectus on IBM. I wanna invest in IBM. He has to get you the prospectus. Under
That
Oh, it's not considered profit, that's right.
that Fidelity, so you have to sign up, you have to sign whatever. Is there a monthly fee? You've got to create a login and there's a monthly fee or something. I'm pretty sure when I went on there,
They could.
but it's well worth it, just like at Manta, it's just well worth
I've never been charged.
it. Really?
Yeah.
You created a login, I don't know why I wasn't able to, okay.
So,
Of course you're not.
know your enemy. Once you have all this, now what have you just done? You have taken and proved that they are de facto. That they are now actors, acting as government. You've rebutted the presumption. Once you do that, how can anyone who is not de jure government of we the people rule over you? Can somebody from McDonald's rule over you? Or Walmart? Or Costco? Huh? Only if you consent and contract. That's right.
You can also complete the contract by accepting benefit. We've all accepted benefits in our pockets right now, so they works both ways, like you're saying. On their side, devil's advocate,
Okay.
we've already accepted.
All right,
benefit.
let's get out of that real quick.
Good one.
All right. Yeah, that's a contract. They'll say that. They'll bring it up on their computer screen. Judges have computers at their desk now sometimes.
Sure.
And they go, here's his report. Yeah, he's a citizen, a person, a resident. We have jurisdiction. Wait a minute, Judge. You know, the nice thing about fraud is at some point in time, very important, some point in time, fraud must be recognized. Yeah, I received benefits at one time. I had no idea. I was unknowledgeable. I was stupid. I was just a car boy from a Middletown nation. I accepted some benefits. But then I recognized the fraud. I learned, I got educated, I studied. I see the fraud. Look at this. You guys are all private for-profit businesses. You're de facto. You're acting and pretending to be government under the color of law. Anything colorable is a fallacy. Rules, codes, statutes, and ordinances are not law. Shaw versus Ring. Okay. On and on and on. Since governments have chosen to incorporate themselves, they must follow the same rules as any other corporation. They operate under the color of law to deprive you of your rights under corporate bylaws. If I'm an employee of government, the state of Oregon seems to pay their guys that drive around in those little white state vehicles at least $50,000, $60,000 a year. Where's my check? Where's my health insurance? Where's my PERS retirement fund? If I'm going to be an employee and you're going to consider me an employee, pay up. Okay? See, I recognize the fraud, Your Honor. And once I recognize the fraud and I bring it out in the open, sunlight's the best disinfectant. And fraud must be vitiated. It avoids everything from ab initio from the beginning. Somebody could go along with fraud for a long time. I could write you a check for $30 a month because you told me some story, and I give you a check. And then one day I realized she's just putting it in her own pocket. She's not doing with it what she told me it was for. That's fraud. And now I can stop paying her. And now I can go after her for every time I ever gave her. Yeah, because at some point in time, I recognized the fraud. I woke up. That's the day the wheel falls off whack. Okay? That avoids everything from the beginning when fraud is first recognized. That's what you use. That's how you win that argument in a court. You win every time if you can out-debate them. That's all it takes. And if they try to speak over you, I just hold them up my hand like a school crossing guard stopping traffic. One time I held up my hand like this in court for about, 20 minutes. My arm was getting tired. And the judge looks at me and says, "You gotta go to the bathroom?" I said, "No, but I dang sure want to be heard."
So is the judge acting in honor though? Or is it in dishonor? Or is it just because you haven't done the 12 assumptions yet, and so he's still wearing the bar? So where does that fall in?
The burden is, proof is on them,
It's on them, okay.
but you have to rebut everything and every presumption.
Okay, and then at that point you can take off the bar hat and go back to
Right.
the public servant oath.
Those 12 presumptions I was reading yesterday, if you don't rebut all 12 presumptions, they'll use syllogism to run over you. Lessons you learn on an airplane. Deserve.
Okay, so I'm a health insurance broker also. Everybody who has individual health insurance gets tax credits so that they can afford their policy. So not only are people, they don't have to be on public aid, but anybody making under 120 grand, they're getting paid by the government so they can afford their insurance.
Let me tell you something. If they're young and healthy, I recommend taking their $325 a month insurance premium and put it in a good mutual fund, and then when they do need to go to the doctor, they'll have a couple $100 grand in there to pay for it. That's all an insurance policy is anyway.
And or if you're not paying.
You're just putting it in their savings account so that they're free to use the money until they have to pay out. But 9 times out of 10, the vast majority of people are healthy for a long period of time. Now, if you're dealing with somebody my age, sell them an insurance policy. But if they don't, go get a securities license, sell them a mutual fund if they're 25.
Series 6 is hard though. Series 6 is hard.
All
Yeah,
the other-
but if you do that, you're not paying taxes anyways. You can take all that money and put it towards.
Exactly right.
And if you don't own anything, because it's all in a God trust, and you have to go in the hospital, you get cancer.
Yeah, you
I
see
don't
what
own
I mean?
anything.
The more you guys learn,
Mm-hmm.
the more money seems to stay in your pocket all the time. It's really a wonderful thing. Had I known this stuff 30 years ago, oh my gosh. I've been rich 3 times in my life, and I've been poor 3 times in my life. Huh?
I'm hoping this is my time.
Hey, sometimes it's easier to make than it is to keep. Because, them in Kentucky out of a man out of a lot of money, I tell you that. I told my son says, "You want to meet my new girlfriend?" I said, "Just buy her a house." Right. If you get married, you're going to end up buying her a house anyway. So, anyway. All joking aside.
So this is all acquiescence and adhesion contracts, and addressing
Of course, that's what it all is. That's what it all is. So the trick is being able to ask them the right question. They're coming after you. They're trying to come after you for some reason. It doesn't matter what it is. Traffic ticket or stealing your kids or whatever. They're coming after you. Taxes. And your job is to ask them 25 questions that show that they have no contract whatsoever.
So what kind of questions again do you ask?
What proof do you have in truth, fact, and evidence in writing that I am an employee of your corporation?
What, would a driver's license count as a contract?
A driver's license is a contract to operate in commerce. But if I'm not operating in commerce, I've got a driver's license. I drive a semi-truckload of hay sometimes. I can operate in this jurisdiction, or I can handle my passport. I am not going to handle this if I'm traveling. They're going to get this, maybe this.
Do you stick it in it? No.
What is that brown book? What is that?
The Declaration of Independence of the Constitution of the United States.
It's all in that little book.
Mhm.
We need
There's
that.
only 10 you gotta worry about. Anything after 10 is unconstitutional anyway.
That's the
Well,
Bill of Rights.
It is,
Yeah.
but you got to remember who you're dealing with.
Yeah.
See, this is what I'm trying to get through to patriot groups, sovereign citizens, whatever. Okay, I love anybody who stands up. They're my neighbors. I love them all. But they go by the 26th. Right? It's there to limit government. These documents were created. They have nothing to do with me. I don't love God's laws, unalienable rights. This limits them. So who cares if the 26th wasn't ratified, or the 14th wasn't ratified? They believe it was. They have the right of self-determination. That's what I fought to protect. Their rights. They believe it is. It doesn't apply to me. It allows me to hold them accountable.
So because
Okay.
it doesn't apply to us, I mean, I've heard arguments that if it's signed to the posterity in capital letters, so that changes to capital, which changes the meaning, so it only
course.
applies to them. It doesn't apply to us.
It all applies to them.
Okay.
It all applies to them. That was the intent. Read the Federalist Papers and the Anti-Federalist Papers. Read the Law of Nations on how to set up a nation.
Okay, Vattel, exactly. Now, Vattel and Locke and Hayne, our founding fathers, literally.
Payne was one of my
This is
grandfathers.
all, no kidding.
Yeah.
Okay, all international law here. This is all based on international law, and states only recognize states. And it's like, unless you establish your own state, they have zero.
What is a state? It's a nation. Each state is an independent nation state.
Yes,
It's all international.
but you have to have land to control, or in this case, now you can have virtual domain to control. But states will only recognize states, not its inhabitants or populace. So they're seeing you as an inhabitant or populace, and you're not your own state, so you have no ground to stand on.
So that's making the Williams out.
I've been down the Williams Road a little bit, and he hurt my feelings for a while. So what do you think?
I know him very well.
Yeah.
He's got a good premise if he wants to
Yeah, he also has the dog.
own country. But you know what? Once he does that, the United States doesn't like the thing he's doing, they're going to take him out. One little drop of a bomb, and they've got every right to do it.
Hold on now, because following Vattel in our international law, states cannot harm states. He's safer than any one of us individually.
Yeah. Tell that to Saddam Hussein. Tell that to Gaddafi. Tell that to
That was a
Marcos.
central bank assassination. That was
All
that
of them
country,
were.
our country, yeah.
We are the army for the central banks.
Yeah, we're the water jurisdiction, we're the sword.
That's right.
Vatican's air jurisdiction,
That's right.
and Westminster, also known as London, is our land jurisdiction.
That's right. See, it's not too loud today here. The United States of America is right here.
Yeah.
The United States is over there. And the United States is over there, that's controlling everything,
Yeah.
is being controlled. Right here. The name of every organization on earth, you could write on that line, on one of those lines. And as that organization, these people are all our neighbors, they're you and I. They're good, honest, moral people. As they go into power, they start committing the 7 deadly sins. Greed, lust, envy, on and on and on. Then they're controlled. This group controls every organization on earth. Every church,
Your comment.
everything. They control everything. Bankers, the bar, and every organization on earth. You didn't get to hear this yesterday. I'm going to repeat it one more time because it's a really important story that all of you should be telling someone else. You can use any name, any person. Just graduated from law school in Seattle, Washington. And he's went to work for a big attorney firm and he just passed the bar, so they held a party for him. They rented the restaurant at the Space Needle, and the whole attorney firm and everybody up there was having a party and dinner and everything. And afterwards, the kid who the party was for is standing there looking out the windows. The head of the attorney firm walks up, puts his arm around him, says, "You see all that? Some of the biggest corporations in the world. You got Boeing, Amazon, Microsoft, on and on and on. Right? And see even those little corporations, Joe's Fish Shack, all these little corporations. Who do you think controls all of that?" And the kid turns around and says, "The CEOs of the companies." He says, "No. There's not one CEO that doesn't run every single piece of paper, every single decision past his lawyer. We control them. We control Amazon. We control Microsoft. We control Boeing. We can control Joe's Fish Shack." The Bar Association is the army of the bankers. The bankers sit back and smoke their cigars in big fat little chairs and tell the lawyers what to do because they control the purse strings. And the lawyers do their dirty work. And they create contracts in government forms. Never fill out a government form. Create your own. You can use their forms for information and stuff, but any type of, they're all written by lawyers. They're all designed to do one thing: to take away the government's liability and place it all upon you. Every single government form you fill out, every form in a doctor's office, a hospital, or any private business was written by their attorney firm. Know that right up front. Once you realize those kind of things, now you can write your own contracts that are fair and equitable between two men.
Difficulty level, but what about the Parsi syntax that, is just decimates every contract? I know you've watched hours of it. I want to know every drop of it.
I've been to David Wynn Miller's house. I went to his funeral. Okay? I've known those guys for 20 years. I helped David Wynn Miller get out of one of the problems with the FBI.
Okay.
So,
know all of it.
I can tell you story after story, but that's not the important thing. Parsi syntax grammar is great. It's ahead of its time. It proves every contract's fraudulent, and it's a different language. No judge knows how to read it. Dave lost more cases than he won. and he won a great deal. But he lost a lot of cases. Simply because the judge says, I don't understand the language I'm throwing at.
What's it called?
They're
Parsis?
bank administrators, read their local rules. There,
So
let's go back here.
What's it,
Again,
what's
What's
that
that?
called? The syntax? What's it called?
Parsi.
RC, PAR?
Parse syntax grammar. All right, let's go back here again, know your enemy. Ask the question out loud so everybody can hear it. You said it.
I know. How do we hold them, or how do, when they do that, when they just throw it out?
Okay,
Yeah, what do you do after that?
know your enemy.
No, you're in, right?
Every time you go to court, you look up their local rules. And if you read that thoroughly, you're gonna see that there's a rule that says they can break their own rules.
Oh, goodness. Well, then what's the point?
Even in a federal court. I know a guy that was totally railroaded in federal court. Not only that, he was set up by an IRS agent.
I just want to hear about it.
Here, I'll tell you a little secret story. Probably shouldn't have done it. Anyway, this guy was one of the top bankers in the world. And he was a logger. 5-generation logging family. And he married his high school sweetheart that he knew since second grade. And her last name was Page. After they were married, they had a couple of kids. They were sitting around talking about their family. And she asked if he wanted to go to their family reunion. And he said, sure. They drive to Connecticut. And they drive to this castle, this monstrous house. Big grounds, long driveway, all gated. Drive up, butler comes to the door. Says, sit right here, I'll go announce that you're here. He looks on the coffee table and there's a newspaper. He's got this picture on it. It's an old newspaper, and he's looking at it. He's wondering who these people are, and she walks by and says, oh, that's all my family. That's my uncle. You'll meet him today. That's all my family. And the butler comes back, and he walks out, and they walk through the house to the backyard. He throws the glass doors open, and they walk out into this giant manicured courtyard with a tent and white chairs and hundreds of people walking around and tables set up, caterers and everything else. And he walks out there and his wife starts introducing him to the family. And they're all the Rothschilds. And they knew everything about him. They knew he ran a $500 million a year logging operation. Hundreds of trucks, two of the largest. He was the largest hardwood veneer mill producer in the world. $500 million a year business. And they knew it all. And they swept him into the banking world by saying, you can run all your companies just the way you're doing it now. And we'll give you another $350,000 a year, plus perks, private jet, all kinds of intelligence agencies watching his every move in his back, keeping his back. See how he'd fly around with him in the plane. Okay. Everywhere he went, every country he went to, he was protected. If he went to Israel, he was protected by Mossad. France, the French Foreign Legion. Sweden, their National Guard. On and on and on. Wherever he went, he was protected. Extra $350,000 a year, and that was just pennies compared to the stipends that he got. But he was honest, and he was moral, he was upright, and he got into that that banking world, and he was one of the top bankers in the world. And he started seeing things. He was put there to handle all their lumber transactions worldwide with people like this. And he'd do a $500 billion lumber deal with some nation. And then he'd do look at the wire transfer that happened, and it was a lot more than that. And he started to realize that that's how they were funding armies and funding government. They just tack on to contracts extra dollars, and that helps fund all these other things. So one day he saw a transaction that when he stopped this transaction, it made world news. He stopped Bill and Hillary Clinton in a multi-billion-dollar transaction that they were doing. And another transaction he allowed to go through because they were trying to stop it. And that was to Benjamin Netanyahu. And he allowed that transaction to go through. So he started working for whoever was in the right versus who was in the wrong. And one day he's home, he's with his wife and kids in his house, it's early in the morning, and black helicopters land in his yard, and SWAT teams show up and everything, and this lady, all dressed in a suit, gets out of a SUV, walks into his house, opens his front door, walks into a broom closet by his kitchen, grabs a broom handle, goes up the stairs. He lived in a 17,000 square foot home on 3,000 acres in Indiana. And she walked up into a second floor room, and she went like that. She had a ceiling tile just similar to this one. And $14 million in cash dropped onto the floor. They put him in handcuffs. They took him to the federal courthouse. They put him in jail for 5 years. And he's out on lifetime parole until he pays the IRS back $450,000 in tax. That wasn't even his money. Somebody stuck it there, and she knew exactly which ceiling tile they had in a 17,000 square foot house.
Huh.
They set him up.
But how could they prove
And
that?
he's one of the
he was-
nicest guys in the
How
world.
could they prove that I mean,
Doesn't matter.
doesn't matter.
He tried to prove it wasn't his. He tried to do everything. You know what the judge did? Time bar 2255, every single one of his documents set aside. He set aside all his documents. It's in the local rules of the federal court.
How do you do this?
Don't get in bed with her.
I've helped him file 5 documents. An error correndo was a notice of special appearance, just trying to get him off probation. Because he has to be in the same house every night at midnight. They ping his phone every night at midnight. And if he's not in that GPS location, he's in trouble. He can't leave the state. No.
He can't change his
He doesn't want that.
jurisdiction.
He lost all that. He lost his wife, he lost his kids, he lost his properties, he lost his car, he lost his businesses, he lost his logging companies, $500 million a year business gone, 5 generations of work gone. He lost all that while he was in the 5 years in prison. He had nothing. When he got out of prison, he had to move into his sister's house and rent a room in his sister's house and go back to logging. It took him months to save up enough money. I think his sister loaned him money to buy a chainsaw so he could go out and fall trees and start making a living again. And out of every check, he has to give them half towards that $450,000. Now he lives in a piece of property that he bought on contract. And it's one of those little mini homes, maybe about here to here, maybe about like that. I've been to his house. And then he's got a garden shed that keeps his chainsaw and stuff in, out back, and he's now bought a pickup. That's all he owns. He can take everything out of the house that he really owns and throw in his pickup and leave. There's nothing there for him. He has no assets hardly at all. Because he owes money on that little mini home and he owes money on the land as much as it's worth. So what he actually owns, he can throw in the back of his pickup.
Could he just do a trust?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of things he can do now. We've actually done God trust for him and recorded it. But what I'm trying to say is he has no assets left. Even his pickup, his sister signed the loan for it. He owes more on it than it's worth because he bought a used Dodge four-wheel drive pickup because he has to go into the woods, sometimes up roads that are muddy and washed out, just to do his job. And he owes more on it than it's worth. So really, he's got some clothes, a few pots and pans and stuff. That's it. This man was at the top of the world. He was flying around on a G7 that he controlled. Told him where to go.
He's wealthier now.
Did he not have a trust? Or would that even help if he had a trust?
It would have helped a lot. But this is what they did to him. The Clintons destroyed him. They set him up. They destroyed him. They did it on
Well, they didn't
purpose.
kill him.
Uh,
They didn't kill
They
him.
threatened to kill him several times.
Well, he may, he'd probably be better off at
Yeah.
the
He
situation,
wouldn't
yeah.
do that.
What? Yeah, no.
So, anyway. You have to prove you're not a citizen, person, or resident. You gotta know your status, standing, and jurisdiction. You gotta know your enemy. You gotta know that they're de facto. You have to know how to combat that and prove that. The burden of proof of your crime is on them. But the only way to establish status, standing, and jurisdiction, that burden of proof is on you. Okay?
So, and I know that we talked about this, to do the standing of jurisdiction to try and get them to say it's contract law to the judge. What are some good words to do?
You have to get them to admit that.
To admit it? Okay, so what jurisdiction, like, how do I say it? Because last time I
Judge,
did the.
what is the law?
What is, judge, what is the law?
What is the law? Where does origins come from? How did we arrive at this thing called law where a small group of men can put something down on paper and try to hold me a man accountable?
Right.
And then you have to shut up, let him answer. He's gonna give you a lame ass answer, if he even answers. A lot of times, you stump them right there. They've never been asked that question. Okay? Then you hold your hand up like a stop sign and say, I'm just a double farm boy from Milltown in Oregon. That's what I say. Well, my comprehension is, in Genesis 1:26 through 28, God gave me man dominion over the land, air, and water. The land is common law, common to all of us. It's property, equity, and rights. The air is ecclesiastical or canon law, which is trust law. The water is admiralty or commerce, which is contract law. So when the prosecuting attorney misused the word jurisdiction on purpose to confuse the general public, what he was really meaning to say is venue or locus, location. Because isn't the city's jurisdiction, the county's jurisdiction, the state's jurisdiction, the federal government jurisdiction, aren't they all operating in the same contract law? Judge, aren't they?
Judge.
Okay, you have to get them to speak. Sometimes you gotta go,
You have to
Judge?
repeat the question.
can you answer that question? And he'll say yes. Okay. Now you've established the basis of that. 1 + 1 is 2. You've got down to there's 3 jurisdictions of law. One jurisdiction is. You've got down that they're operating in this jurisdiction, contract law. Now it's a simple matter of bring forth the contract. Doesn't meet all 8 elements of the contract. Is there privity of contract? Meeting of lines, full and honest disclosure, terms and conditions, consideration, 2 willing signatures by 2 like parties. They can never supply that.
You chase them there and then they say you're a statutory jurisdiction.
But then certified contract.
Statutory is not a jurisdiction.
That's what they say. And then you can say, well, okay, show me where I can study the statutory jurisdiction so I can defend myself.
I
It
don't
doesn't
say that.
exist.
What I say is statutory is not a jurisdiction.
Right.
It is under contract law.
That's good, sir.
Show me the contract. What proof do you have in truth, fact, and evidence that I am an employee of whatever it happens to be? That I'm an employee of the city of Woodton, that I'm an employee of the Kirk County, that I'm an employee of the state of Illinois, that I'm an employee of the United States, that I'm an employee of the UN. What proof of truth, fact, and evidence do you have that I? And you just go on and on and on, starting every sentence that way. Because they've got the burden of proof on them, right? That's what you're doing. You're throwing it back. You're asking questions that throw the burden of proof back on them that they have to answer.
This would be post-arraignment though. So you've already said something so it's to be in a position.
I sent them a notice of appearance and a letter of interrogatory and an error of quorum notice right off the bat before I even go to agreement or court. They're gonna get those 3 documents.
You can use arraignment as a point to establish, look, you have to establish all the elements of this, and one of those elements is jurisdiction. Is there proof in that folder of jurisdiction or not? I'm not asking you if I'm in your jurisdiction, I'm saying the proof has to be in the envelope or not, show me it.
Right.
Bye.
Right.
How can he go after them?
Huh?
Can that guy go after them now?
Sure.
That'd be in his lawful right to go after them?
Sure.
Sue him personally.
Yeah. And take the claims to court and see how far that'll get you.
6 feet.
I don't know.
Is there any way we can get those 3 documents you're talking about, or?
Yeah.
Add that to the email.
Do we have internet here?
We do.
I don't
I do.
I have a hotspot.
know.
I have a hotspot.
I have a Cricket
Well,
email,
I guess we have phones too.
Gmail.
Chris, you have.
It's almost done.
Chris, you have.
I don't see, I don't see your hotspot anywhere.
It's
on
Sprint.
here.
Sprint.
Sprint, Wi-Fi 31C.
Yeah.
958.
Yeah. Password
Give you mine.
595 6999A. Small a.
Let's see if we got it right.
Let me give you ours.
That's what they brought about, 19 short.
Do you have a piece of paper that you want around with it? 'Cause I don't think I gave you mine.
We can do that yet.
It's just
Oh, not
Gotta
yet.
wait for all the notifications that are coming in. You know, I have hundreds of thousands of documents on this computer. Probably a dozen of them would be beneficial to you right off the bat. One of them. Keep notifying. One is something we use probably 200 times to repel police officers at somebody's door. It's called warning to all. I call it warning to all agents. And
don't answer the door.
I tell people to tape 2 or 3 copies on the back side of their door. And if they come, leave the chain on, open the door 1/2 inch, hand them the copy, and close the door and lock the deadbolt. And they stand there and they read it, and they all, so far, they've always got their car home. It's worked every time. My daughter rolled her window down of her car when a cop stopped her and slipped it through the little slot. And he read it, and he got back in his car and he left and he went home. She didn't even talk to him.
How dare you?
Do I have to sign this before I give out my passport?
Yeah.
I like Dr. Dr. Negro.
Ruby, they were coming after her daughter. I was on my way home driving from Utah to my house in the car. She's got CPS and 2 officers in her driveway wanting to take her daughter from her. I had to write this down on a piece of paper in the kitchen. I told her she was in Nevada, it was middle of July. Hot her heck out. I said, make them sweat. Take your time. Let's write this down. She wrote it down on her kitchen table and wrote the whole thing down. And she hands it to them and they don't have to bump them on. So,
What magic words are these?
well, so
I'm gonna bankrupt Dunkin' Donuts.
you've already said part of it. Title 18, Section 242. On and on. Okay. So you have it.
It's my license plate.
Okay.
Where do I go?
One of the most important things to teach people is the story of the mother. If you want to wake them up, show them the frog, tell them the story of the mother.
And so you said that was a family.
Okay, the 12 presumptions of court.
Where are your 12 presumptions? Probably you for the list.
You said you were gonna sign my first thing. I found it. So.
That's what I really think she said.
What's your email?
280. 5280 video.
Video.
Video. VIQ.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
My slide.
No Google anything. No Microsoft anything.
I mean, deep.
You are. You're buried just by having that.
Even though I give her stuff, so she doesn't.
I haven't what? Google? Gmail?
Well, I think the ink is in the water. I don't know how to. Yeah, that's.
Okay, what was the other one?
You said there was 3.
We did the 12 presumptions of court.
The elements of the program.
Oh, there.
Thank you.
And whatever that example document that you posted on that.
According to.
Morning to eight.
It says right, that's a bureau. It's a bureau. What is a bureau? I've never even looked that up in class.
Did you bring your Black's Lion?
No, it's inside the car. I didn't think we were gonna need it today, so.